Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Checking In. I'm Leon Thomas with Miranda Kitterlin Lynch. Hey, Miranda, how you doing?
I'm great. It's Friday here today, and I am excited. Don't hate me, but we're going to be playing tennis later. Well, I won't be playing. I'll be driving children to play tennis.
When you started that off, like, "Hey, Miranda, how you doing?" and your next line is, "Don't hate me." I knew it was going to be something sports related. I knew it was coming. Now, I didn't know if that's because you had a sudden allegiance toward a team in the NCAA basketball tournament,
Nope,
right?
your team. Your
I didn't know if that was it because my school, Robert Morris University plays sometime today. And we're also going to have Professor Emeritus Dr. Dave Sunoka with us on an upcoming episode. He has agreed to do that. But I figured it was something racket related, right? I knew it was something racket related. And you said, don't hate me, don't get mad at me or something like that. I'm like, okay, here it comes.
But I
And
didn't say the P word.
yes, that's great. You didn't say the P word. All is cool. All is cool. Although, as you know, anyone who says the P word on the show, they get removed, but you're not allowed to remove a co-host from the show. So you would be here anyway. But I'm glad you're rocking on with a racket sport right on. Now, do you play at all?
I do not. Both of my daughters are playing, and I would love to learn how to play. I asked my oldest, and she said, "Well, Mom, you should take a lesson then." And I said, "Well, I just paid for your lessons. You teach me." And she said, "No, Mom, you're going to have to take a lesson." So maybe that's on my summer agenda.
You take a lesson and take your camera with you and record it, and we'll play it right here on checking in. Let's see how it goes. All right. But the other recording I'd love to see is you eating bean pie.
If it exists, maybe one day.
Okay, well,
We'll
we'll
ask our
find.
guest about it today.
Yes, let's do that. Folks, if you'd like to be on checking in, you can send me an email. My email address is leon at theleonthomasgroup.com. We'd love to have you on to come and talk about whatever it is that's on your mind, particularly the check in about the hotel business. Let us know what's happening. What are you seeing? What are you thinking? What you do in the industry? How you got there? Anything. Share your story. We'd love to have you do it. Miranda, how do folks get in touch with you?
The easiest way is to open any search engine and type in my name. I'm very, very easy to find, hard to hide.
How cool would that be for everyone that our names are just do it. Yeah, right on. So that's how you do. We'd love to have you on our show. Miranda, who's our guest today?
Well, why don't we bring him on so he can tell us who he is and what he does and share all his pearls of wisdom?
Oh boy.
Hey,
Wow.
Michael, thanks for being
Hey,
here.
I am Michael Frenkel, industry communications, strategic communications, marketing, business development, sort of connector kind of guy. Just to get it out of the way, totally into racket sports, but tennis, not anything that begins with a P. I am not. I'm not a NCAA final, March Madness guy. Just not like in the way old days, like Patrick Ewing, and like then it was really fun and cool. But lately, I don't know. But I am a big baseball guy, and hope springs eternal. It's spring, the boys are out on the field, and that nothing makes me happier. So anyway, we got the sports piece out of the way.
Okay, well let's continue on the sports
Oh,
genre
yeah,
just
let's
for a
do it.
second here.
Oh, yeah.
Now you mentioned Patrick Ewing,
Yeah,
right? I remember at Madison Square Garden when he would score, he'd
sure.
go Ewing,
Yeah,
Ewing, right?
yeah,
That's Georgetown, St. John's,
yeah,
Villanova, three of them, three Big
yeah,
East schools in the
yeah,
Final Four that year.
yeah.
Yeah, that's when I basketball was tight then,
Yeah, but
right?
that whole era, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Patrick Ewing and the captain, and of
yeah,
course, you know, Michael Jordan, right? I
of
mean,
course,
it's
of
like,
course.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that was okay. That was eh, okay. You want some March Madness trivia? It was Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. right?
Indiana State against Michigan State,
Indiana State, Michigan.
1979. Yes.
That was basketball. That was
Well,
basketball. That was just anyway.
yeah.
Sorry for all you folks who are under 45 listening, but
They just don't understand. They just don't know.
They just don't make them like
They
that.
just don't understand. It's not it. Yeah. All right. Right on. Okay. So the sports part is out for now.
We're done. Yeah,
We
sure.
may bring it back. We
Yeah.
may bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, share with us a little bit about like your journey in the industry. Like, how did you get into the industry? I know for many people it's accidental. I know for Leon and I, it certainly was. Tell us about your.
All right. Well, you guys, you just shut me up whenever you're, because that's what I do, is kind of tell stories. So, and it's all true. It's not fiction, not made up. But if I'm going on too long, you just wave or press a buzzer or whatever, and I'll
Never.
Yeah, I mean, actually, my entry into the industry was 30-ish years ago. I was working in public relations, community relations, and sort of public affairs type stuff. And I ended up in Hawaii, of all places, where I was working for a fellow actually in public affairs, who at the time owned one of Hawaii's big hotels. So he was a real estate magnate. And I used to do meetings for, we used to like entertain, congressmen and lobbyists. And we would always do it at the hotel, right? Because he owned the hotel. So we had a beautiful, beachfront seat on the lanai at the restaurant. And, this fellow would wine and dine these political folks, right? And at the hotel, and I'm looking around at the hotel, and I'm like, it's pretty cool. Hotel is an interesting animal, right? Like it's rooms and it's surf and sun and relaxing, but it's also a place where you can hold meetings. It's also a place where you can meet with senators and congressmen, and there's a lot going on here. So that was kind of my introduction to the industry, right? Sort of like, hotels. Maybe I should look into that a little bit, right? So that was so we'll march quickly through the years. In the 1990s, my first job in the industry, I was actually public relations manager for the Howard Johnson hotel chain. So you remember old Hojo, right? Hojo, clam strips, grilled cheese, orange roofs, and the whole thing. It was a great first job. I mean, it's just like, American icon.
Yeah.
That basically nobody wanted to stay at anymore, right? So the job was like, how do we contemporize this thing? How do we make it real for today's travelers? But the reason I thought about it is because a lot of what I do now, which we can talk about, is involved in technology and innovation and hospitality innovation. And I remember a day, gosh, it must have been 1996, 7. So I'm the PR manager for Howard Johnson, and I've got an office, and the next office next to me is the Days Inn PR manager, right? Because companies were owned by what is today Wyndham, right? They're still owned, but at the time, the company was called HFS Incorporated, Hospitality Franchise Systems. So, the Days Inn PR manager is at the office next to me, and we would have lunch together. We'd come back and forth. And one day he walks into my office, and he asked me to turn on my computer screen, which was a computer screen, right? With a keyboard. And he says, Michael, I want to show you something. He takes me to something called daysin.com, right? And the big Days Inn sunburst comes on the screen, right? And that's all it was. It was like the sunburst and the words Days Inn. I'm like, Brian, what is that? Right? He says, well, they tell me that's our website. And I said, cool. What does it do? And his answer was, well, they tell me you're going to make reservations on it by going to www.daysin.com, right? I don't think that's going to happen. I'm real skeptical. It's probably just another one of these crazy schemes from like the marketing department, but they tell me it's going to mean, I'm like, cool. Let's go have lunch, right? And well, so that was, almost 30 years ago. Sort of flash forward to the next part of my journey after I had started my business as a PR marketing business development consultant around 2012, 2013. We had been working with and representing mostly owners, asset managers, brands, but I was introduced to more intimately to the hospitality technology space through work that I was doing for Thayer Ventures, which is the venture capital firm which invests in a lot of technology startup companies. And at that point, it was very clear, talking 2012, 2013, that there was something going on in the tech space, right? Like the OTAs were here, are gobbling up hotel revenue. Airbnb had just come on the scene. It's pretty clear that technology and innovation is something important, right? But it was still pretty hard at that point to bring it to the attention of the C-suite players in the industry, right? You ever talk to a CEO at that period of time, or even a CCO or a chief operating officer about technology? They're just kind of like, well, yeah, we have a chief technology officer. That's what he does or what she does, kind of take it down the hall, right? So it's sort of like, yeah, there was a sense that this stuff was important, and clearly important in the sense that Airbnb and the OTAs were intruding on the hotel value chain, right? And gobbling up some of our revenues, but not quite there yet. Flash forward 7, 8 years to COVID and post-COVID, suddenly, boom, right? We can't hire people, right? We can't employ people, and we can't find people to fill our needs at hotels and even in corporate settings. What do? Well, the answer is technology, right? And so suddenly technology post-COVID is front and center in the industry. Whereas in 2012, you literally couldn't get a hotel CEO to look at technology. By 2020, 21, they're the heartbeat of CEOs' earnings calls with Wall Street. Like, how are you getting out of the mess post-COVID? It's technology, right? Like, we're utilizing the latest tech systems to make our numbers. And then flash forward to where we are today, and I don't have to tell you where we are. It's like AI is eating the world, right? Like, suddenly technology is so central that we wonder if anybody's going to have jobs anymore in the industry after sort of AI really takes hold. So anyway, like I said, I could talk for hours, but it's been an interesting journey over 30 years to sort of see things evolve.
It's pretty cool how many things have changed in 30 years, because in the grand scheme, 30 years is a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
But we've seen so many changes in such a short time. I remember when you were talking about the website that you were introduced to early on. I remember taking a 3-credit college course on how to use a search engine and how to use email. That was all the class was about, because it was so relatively new, right? Let me ask you, because you mentioned AI, and that's a huge discussion right now in every aspect, right? Yep. How are you seeing AI used in your everyday work life, or how do you see the potential for its use?
Listen, I try not to get caught up in hype, right? Because as you get older, like you realize that in life, everything reverts to the mean, right? And no matter how big the hype is, it's going to be out there and it's going to swing back. But I think this is something, right? I mean, I do think, I do believe a lot of the hype on this. Let's just put it this way. I would not, and I've got 3 kids who are, college age and just after college. I would be hard pressed to recommend that anybody go into PR as a career at this point, honestly. I mean, look, there are aspects of PR, thought leadership and counseling and strategic crisis communications, and which obviously is always, like in most things, going to require human touch, right, and human involvement. But I would not want to be a 23-year-old writing press releases right now, because AI is writing press releases, and
Mhm.
they're just as good and sometimes better, right, than what it. So, uh, up until a couple years ago, I did some time at another distinguished university in the hospitality field, and I would do office hours with students. They would come to me and say, what, apart from the usual hospitality courses, right, basics of hospitality and finance and marketing and culinary, what else can we do that'll give us an edge? And I used to say, hey, go take a coding course, right? Like, show that you've got chops and can code and can understand analytics, right? And add that to your resume. I wouldn't recommend anybody take a coding course right now. Coding is going to be done by agents, right? Like you still take the course, right? You still know it. It's still about, I don't want to be too doctrinaire, but yeah, I think that, I think we're in for some wholesale changes, at a certain level. We do, I sit on the board of advisors of a conference called Destination AI conference, which started last year in September. It's the first hotel industry AI specific conference. And one of the speakers there made a really good, I think, point thinking about AI. He said, it's not that AI is going to take the jobs of people. AI is going to take the jobs of people that don't know how to use AI. Right. And I think that's kind of an interesting way to think about it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I tell my students all the time, our industry positions, well, let me rephrase this. You're always going to have the hospitality industry, but the positions may change based on the tools that we have. So,
yeah. And listen, this has all been a sort of, not dour, but sort of scary conversation. So, the upside is just phenomenal. I'm sure you guys have played with ChatGPT a little bit and looked around. The stuff that you can just bring to your fingertips, in research and generating new ideas, right, conversationally with AI, it's just stunning. It's really stunning.
Yeah. Michael, along those lines with AI, we were talking at the beginning of the show about college basketball,
Yeah.
right? And if you look at the new coaches, the coaches that are being hired now to replace those that's fired or moved on to other schools,
Mm.
there's a big push now to hire NBA assistant coaches to coach college teams. And
Mm.
that trend just started this year. And I read an article yesterday that talked about the reason is that the professional league, the NBA, is utilizing AI generated
Mm.
statistics and
Mm.
analytics to help them make better decisions on player development,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what they're doing. That's why they're hiring these NBA assistant coaches, something they wouldn't have thought of doing 3 years ago,
Sure.
right? So you have it's being used in hotel business, it's being used in sports, baseball. They've used it forever in baseball, right? To develop the pitch, the ball number of rotations and all of these things.
Yeah.
But there are some folks who still aren't believers in new technology. And I'm coming through with my question here in a second.
Sure.
My father, when I was coming out of high school, my dad said, never be afraid of technology, but figure out how you can utilize it to help you. But
Mm-hmm.
always stay on top of it. And his phrase was, if there's anything computers, boy, you gotta do it. Learn them computers, learn them computers. That's where it is. And of course, you know, 50 years later, he's right,
Right.
right? He was right on it. So for those that say don't focus on technology, for a high school student, maybe even a college student who's getting advice from a professor and others at their university to say, you really need to embrace this. But at home, they're getting the put the phone down people. How do you navigate that conversation? What's your best advice for them on how to take all
Well,
of that and make
Yeah,
some decisions?
a couple things. I mean, first, I think that kids today, look, just haven't gone through the parental gauntlet here, right? And with a 24-year-old, a 20, and a 17-year-old, right? Kids are so, uh, you know, machine focused to begin with, right? That they gravitate to online and technology. It's part of their wallpaper, right? It's part of their existence, the way it never was, certainly for me and for us, I think, growing up and being younger. So I think there's probably a little less resistance there. I think, I think just some straight talk about, I was doing sort of mental experiment the other day and trying to think of a profession that would not be helped by AI, right? Would not be supported. And I'm sitting here in my home office and I'm watching our landscaper out in the backyard, like, doing a spring cleaning, right? I'm saying to myself, well, okay, you're a landscaper, right? You drive around a mower and you clean the leaves and but you've got a crew, right? And you need to understand how to utilize the crew better and optimally so you can make more money, right? And maybe there's things you don't know about why that tree died, right? Which if you went to AI and did a search on this tree, will tell you plant it in a certain season, but not enough. I mean, you understand what I'm saying, right? There's just, to the extent that knowledge is a part of anything in any profession that we do, I can't imagine how AI is not going to help you do that job better, faster, easier, and more profitably, right? So I think, and look, AI can also be fun, right? I guess I would say for kids, gamify it for them, right?
Mhm.
Like, hey, I was telling you before, my son is the captain of his varsity tennis team. Now, I'm just making this up on the fly, but sort of like, hey, Joe, you're playing these 8 teams, right? I'm sorry, maybe this isn't kosher. I mean, maybe this isn't like in scope and the right thing to do, but like, do a quick chat GBT on the varsity tennis teams at this school, and this school. What are their weaknesses, right? How can you go out there and play effective? Like, there's just nothing that it doesn't touch, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. You mentioned that Chat GPT could write a press release. And
sure.
so I was just playing just now on Chat GPT.
Mhm.
And I said, write a press release regarding an open house for our racquetball program, racquetballrevival.com. And just that
Boom,
fast
boom,
spits it out.
boom.
And boom, other than not having the date right because I didn't match day and date. How can a hotel guy not match day and date? Can you imagine what happens there if you don't get the day and date right? But I
Oops.
didn't do it, and it just put it in and says we're having an open house, date to be determined. So I mean, it's here. There's
It's
so
here.
much going on.
It's
Yep.
here. It's
Yeah.
here.
Go ahead.
Now let me look. We still do a bunch of PR, and I still intend to keep that business running for a while. So let me not put myself out of business. Okay. At the end of the day, first of all, editors and others are getting pretty sophisticated, right? You can tell when something is just sort of, so you still need people who can personalize that press release, who can make it, really appropriate to the hotel audience. And, who knows the name of the editor at the publication to pitch it to, right? Because if you got the press release, you want to get it in print. So it's still relationships. It's still an industry. You still need to connect with people. And that's kind of what I've been, sort of in another way. Although AI and technology is depersonalizing things in a certain respect, in another respect, it's making the human element even more important, right? Because when you walk into that hotel, you may or may not want to see a front desk clerk, right? After you walk in after a long flight, you're exhausted. Just give me the key. Let me go to my room. But if there's something not right in the room, you're going to want to speak to somebody, right?
Yeah.
If if you want that restaurant recommendation that like, okay, TripAdvisor's given me 500, but like this guy who works here and lives right down the street from, he probably knows if this restaurant's any good, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, in another sense, it also helps highlight the things that humans do really well
Yeah.
and the value they can provide, right?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, the guest is coming in after a long flight. When I did hotel training, particularly the soft skills at the front desk, it was a line that I'd say is read them before you spiel them.
Absolutely.
Read the guest before you start going, breakfast is over here and the swimming
Yeah.
pool is here. Read them first, Yeah. So go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about how you mentioned being a connector. So, for anyone listening who's not quite sure what you mean by that, would you expand on this and tell me what is it that drives you to want to do this? Because that's something that's got to be personally driven to want to connect others, right?
I can only, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go back to Leon's sports. This became a very sports, episode, and that's okay. I was watching some spring training baseball with my son a couple weeks ago, and I'm not going to say who we're a fan of, because I don't want to offend anybody, but we're watching the game.
You're a Yankees fan. I already figured that out. But anyway, go ahead. Go ahead with the story. Go ahead.
Long-suffering New York Mets fan, but okay.
Okay, New York.
Could be our year. Anyway, we're watching the game, and we're listening to the announcers, and the batter comes up, and when the batter stepped up, I said, well, clearly you're going to want to go with high hard stuff here, and not mess around with breaking balls against this guy. And then 2 seconds later, the announcer says, well, here comes player X, clearly a breaking ball hitter who, exactly what I said. And my son turns to me and looks at me. He says, Dad, how do you know this stuff? And I said, Joe, it's not because I'm smart. It's because I'm old, right? Like when you're old, you've seen a lot of stuff, right? And if you can remember stuff, it's not because I'm brilliant. It's because like I've seen this 100 times, right?
Yeah.
So in a certain respect, back to your question, Miranda, connecting really is all about staying power in a certain sense. If you're in a space, if you're in the industry, if you go to conferences, if you connect with people on LinkedIn, right? If you're part of a community, you become a face, right? Like people start knowing you just because like I'm here, I'm still here. So, in a certain respect, being part of a community and being active in that community, right? Giving back. Everybody's in business. Everybody wants to, take care of clients and bring in revenue for themselves or their entities. But there's nothing like, having a passion and giving back in the industry to start making those relationships that are beyond just commercial, right? And that are beyond just how can I get this, deliver that, and take home my paycheck, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's being part of a community. It's connecting with people in ways that are other than just transactional, and just put yourself out there, right? There's just no substitute for just putting yourself out there.
What an amazing space to be in, to be at the point in your career or life where you have the ability to help others. And you can help others at any stage in your life and career, of course. But I was talking to someone about why I love my job so much. And I just love being in this stage of being able to bring other people on up with me. It's a great feeling. And Leon, I'm sure you feel that every day when you work with your racquetball family.
Absolutely, yes. Dealing with the kids and their families through racquetball, helping to change their lives through tutoring, mentoring, counseling. And one of the best parts of it is when a program graduate comes back and tells us about the success that they're having in life and how they're giving back.
Yes.
Right. That's a really hot thing. It's a great feeling when that happens. Michael, it's time. It's time for the hard-hitting questions.
Oh, geez.
It's now time for the two, maybe more, signature questions of the show. Okay, so there might be 3, maybe more, but we'll see. Okay.
Hit me.
So, number 1, have you ever had bean pie?
I have never had bean pie as such. No. I mean, I've done funky things with beans in different, like, so I sort of, in a way, well, let me know.
Wait. No. Go down that road. Let's go. Let's go.
In a way, like,
tell us more about the funky thing. Was that funky or clunky? What did he say, Miranda? Was it funky or clunky things?
Funky.
What funky things have you done with beans? Go ahead.
I mean,
it's not that kind of show. It's not that kind of show.
Listen, is soaking a piece of crusty bread in a bowl of beans, like, is that bean pie? That's sort of bean pie, right? Like, so, and I've done that, right? Like, all right, no, I've never had bean pie. Never done bean pie.
I will tell you briefly, speaking of funky things with beans, and I hope my children never listen to this. So I made them black bean brownies last weekend. Because it's supposed to be really healthy and sneak some fiber in, and it's really good for you. And and so my oldest was all about it. She's like, "Oh, Mom, these are good. How'd you make them?" I was like, "Just regular brownies." The youngest knew right away. She was like, "What is this trash? Yeah. What are you doing to me?"
So you're making progress, Miranda, toward bean pie.
Bean pie.
Yes, you're making progress. No, Michael, here's the thing. Miranda says she doesn't believe bean pie is real, that there's even a thing, that it's even a thing at all. She doesn't believe it. I've sent her videos of me in Safeway purchasing bean pie. Yeah. Even another guest has told her that in certain cities, the Nation of Islam sells bean pie on street corners, and she still says it's fake news.
Fake.
I don't know.
Next question, please.
Next question. Next question. How about a Maryland crab cake? Have you ever had a Maryland crab cake?
So the answer is yes, I have, but it was a long time ago, and much to my chagrin and embarrassment, I am not a seafood person. So it's nothing against Maryland crab cakes. I also don't eat Boston clam chowder. I'm not a big flounder guy, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, much to my wife's surprise, if she sees this, I have had a Maryland crab cake. It was when I was a teenager, and I think I really enjoyed it.
And were you in Maryland? Where were you when you had?
Yes, I was at the. Okay. I remember I was at a restaurant in the Inner Harbor, in Baltimore, and yeah.
All right. Okay.
He passes.
You're good. You're
one out of 2. Not bad.
You're good. No, we'll give you. You haven't had the bean pie, but you brought a new element to the bean pie. And you say funky things with beans, so you brought a new element to the show. Yes.
I love it so much.
I'm open to it.
All right, so I'll close us out, Michael, with my question for you. If you could go back in time and give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, wisdom, affirmation, anything, what would it be?
Slow down. That and I'm not sure that advice would be apropos necessarily for all the 20-year-olds today, or all the 20-year-olds that I know, but slow down, look around, breathe, appreciate everything you've got, look at where you are, and then go back to work and start busting your butt. But first, slow down.
I think you could probably give that advice to everybody right now, today, Yeah. Not everybody. I don't like a blanket statement. To many people.
Switch off for a few minutes.
Yes.
Awesome. I love it. Michael, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been such a fun conversation.
It's great. All right, Leon, I'll follow up with you later about your brackets for the March Madness, because
Uh,
I need some advice. I'm clueless. Yeah.
Open up
well,
AI.
yeah, let's see what AI
Well,
says, right? Open it up. I wish I would have because I'm almost I'm in a pool with like 17 or 18 other people, and I'm in last place after day one.
This is why you
what
have
did you
your
say before? Go Robert Morris, right?
Yeah, the go Colonials.
Go get him, baby. Go get him.
Listen, I made a suggestion. Where is it here? Do I even have it with me? I don't have it here in the studio, but I made a suggestion. You know how uh, the players that sit at the end of the bench and they always come up with some gimmick to get the cameras on them. I told them they should wear ascots.
oh,
Have
fancy.
ascots. And I contacted some folks in administration there that I know, even contacted the university president. And I said, they should wear ascots. And someone, the athletic director, responded actually, and he said, I don't think ascots are our coach's
A
style. We
little,
want him to feel
little,
comfortable in the
little
win.
off-brand, maybe. Yeah.
No,
Well,
yeah. When they lose, please know I'll be tweeting and everything else in about it. You should have worn ascots, and
There
I'll
you go.
actually tell them. Michael said you should have worn ascots.
hey, and have some bean pie before to get
There
get,
you go.
Yes,
get
yes,
the
the
empty
pregame meal. I
bean
like it.
pie and ascots, and you're in business. All right.
I like it.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for spending time with us at Checking In. Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Miranda, wow, what a great, fun conversation, huh?
Yes, yes. Every one of our conversations is awesome. They
Yeah,
always, when I think we've had the best one, we have another, and
right.
it's just yeah.
Yep. And folks, we want you. We want you here. The schedule's starting to fill up again, folks. So we want you here. Email me, Leon at the LeonThomasGroup.com. You can contact Miranda, and as she says, just do a search for her name. She's the only one. And so we want you here on Checking In. Looking forward to having you here. Thanks, Miranda. Another great episode.
Thank you.
All right, and folks, we will see you next time on Checking In. Take care.